Allahu Akbar.
So the first question that we do have here that someone has submitted is that they're saying that in the news it's mentioned if you drink hot liquids, it will kill the coronavirus in your mouth, or if it has entered into your stomach. And so when we're fasting, we're not able to drink those hot liquids. And so they're saying that can someone at the risk of contracting the virus suspend fasting and pay the days missed of Ramadan instead?
Najm to unmute him.
Yes, I'm speaking.
There you go. Now you're on now.
Okay. So of the principles of our Sharia is that la darara wa la dirar. There's no harm that we will cause nor will be inflicted onto us. And also of the principles of the Sharia, one of the maxims of the Sharia is kullama daqa al-amru ittasa'. The more restricted the affairs become, the more lax the Sharia becomes. Therefore, when Allah says la yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha, no soul will bear burden more than what it can bear. When there is a genuine threat or harm to our lives or to our persona, the Sharia becomes lax. So we need to look, therefore, at the validity of this harm. And this is where we have to avail ourselves to the knowledge that we have. And when we ask our specialists and our doctors, and the Fiqh Council of North America has asked multiple specialists. The European Fiqh Council had its majlis, had its meeting 3 days ago, and they also invited some top-notch doctors in all of Europe, online, virtually speaking. We also reached out to some of the best doctors here in America. And this notion that drinking liquids or hot liquids will somehow make you immune or protect yourself from the virus, this is simply false. And unfortunately, we have too much rumor mongering and too much chit chatter going on in this regard. And Allah says in the Quran, "In ja'akum fasiqun binabin fatabayyanu." If news comes to you from an unverifiable source, from a source you doubt, then make sure you verify it. This is a matter of life and death. We cannot give fatwa based upon rumors. If there was an actual, genuine issue that protected our lives with certainty, then maybe then we will go through and rethink. And yes, definitely, if it was a matter of life and death, then definitely we can rethink through the obligation of fasting. But if it's just chitter chatter, if it's just background noise, our religion does not base its rulings on mere hearsay. And this is mere hearsay. There is not a shred of evidence. In fact, no reputable doctor is saying that simply drinking any fluid, much less hot fluids, is somehow going to protect yourself from this virus. There is no such thing at all. Therefore, the general rule is that the obligation of the fast shall remain exactly as it is since last year, unless somebody else's situation has changed because of blood pressure, because of sugar or glucose, because of any other factor in and of itself. And I have spoken to specialists and doctors that I trust, and the Fiqh Council has spoken to doctors that are not nationally known. And to the best of our knowledge, no reputable doctor that knows this virus firsthand and is responsible for the maintenance of patients firsthand is somehow linking any type of fluid with protecting the virus and somehow making it more efficient. Therefore, the default shall remain. And if there is a person who is sick for any reason, whether it is, as I said, glucose or sugar or blood pressure or diabetes, and fasting would harm this person, that is a separate issue altogether, and this virus is not going to do it. Now, obviously, if a person is suffering from the effects of the virus, there is no question that the one in fever, that the one in the pangs of hot temperature, there is no question that this person is not obliged to fast while they are suffering from fever and whatnot, and until they are cured, then this is any fever. Plus the fever of this virus, which is, according to what people have said, is much worse. So therefore, the default will remain that there is no exemption for fasting simply because of a fear and based on rumors that knows best.
For the questioner, inshallah ta'ala.
Okay. Yeah, here we go. Yeah.
Hopefully you got that answer, that one person that asked that question. The next we have is a person that's asking that they sincerely miss Jummah prayer. Obviously, I think that's the case for everybody. And they want to know if it's wise to gather friends at their house and do a small Jummah gathering. They don't know if this is wise or not.
Virtual Jummahs and virtual Taraweehs. And the Fiqh Council of North America, the American Muslim Jurists Association, the European Fiqh Council, and the councils of Saudi Arabia and Morocco and Jordan have all
So I will
agreed
exit here and
that
you call
virtual
in.
Jumu'ahs and virtual Taraweehs should not be done, and they are not something that is allowed in the Sharia. Now, there are some solitary voices of ulama that I respect that have said that in light of this coronavirus lockdown, one can do virtual Jumu'ahs and Taraweehs, and I respect those voices, but I don't find myself wanting to open this door right now. And I'll be honest here, if this lockdown continues for a very long time, maybe some councils will start changing their minds. But as of yet, right now, we're hoping that this is only a month or so. And if that is the case, then inshallah ta'ala will remain with the default, because we don't want to open this door of virtual Jumu'ahs, because one of the main purposes of the Jama'ah is literally the meaning of the word Jama'ah, which means congregation. Literally, the word Jama'ah means people coming together. And we are saying that in order to listen to the khutbah, you don't have to be praying Jumu'ah. You can sit in your house and listen to the khutbah and then pray dhuhr. So you will pray dhuhr, but you will get the benefits of the khutbah if you listen. And the issues of doing ghusl and of wearing good clothes and of wearing perfume, they still apply. So on the days of Jumu'ah and on the day of Eid, we might have an Eid only with our family members. We will still wake up and take a ghusl and wear our fine garments and just come together in the living room. And because Eid is separate, we can pray 2 rak'ats Eid in our houses, as the fatwa is going to come out soon, inshallah ta'ala. But to open this door for virtual Jumu'ah or virtual Taraweeh, as of yet, all of the councils of the world, as far as I know, I don't know a single council that has allowed this. Yes, individual ulama. Now, the other question was calling people to your houses and having mini Jumu'ahs. Not at all. That defeats the whole purpose. Dear brothers, if you're going to do this, you might as well just go to the masjid and pray. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's one thing to pray Jumu'ah with your family members only. And to that, we say, the Fiqh Council has said, yani, there is a position out there, but you're really having to stretch things to say a Jumu'ah with one father and then the mother is sitting and then 3 kids. Really stretch to do that. And I'm not saying the salah is batil or the khutbah is batil. I'm just saying that goes against the whole goal, the whole purpose of Jumu'ah. It's much better to listen to the khutbah and then pray 4 rak'ah dhuhr. But if, let's say, there are 3 or 4 adults in the household, so there's a father with 3 teenagers and the family and sisters and whatnot, so you have, mashallah, maybe 6, 7 people. Technically, according to an opinion of early Islam, you can have a mini Jumu'ah in the house with only those family members, even though it goes against the goal of, but anyway, so that's permissible. But to invite families and friends over, no, 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 that is utterly ridiculous, because your whole purpose of isolation is being destroyed. And I say to you, if you're going to do that, you might as well just go and stand in front of the masjid and get all the people together and do it over there. And that's not the whole purpose of this lockdown. So I cannot, and I don't think any reasonable scholar will allow that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
Barakallah feek, may Allah bless you for that. The next question that we have is that with the current situation of lockdown, how would someone practice i'tikaf? I think it's quite obvious, but anyhow, how would that be done? Is there ways to get around it?
We are all in i'tikaf. This is a i'tikaf ijbari.
I have to just read the question, Sheikh. I'm sorry. So go ahead.
There is no need to practice. We are practicing. Okay, so on a serious note, the Malikis, the Shafi'is, and the Hanbalis, they say that in order for i'tikaf to be considered i'tikaf, it must take place in the masjid. Allah says, subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَا تُبَاشِرُهُنَّ وَأَنْتُمْ عَاكِفُونَ فِي الْمَسَاجِدِ. And therefore, according to all of these ulama, in fact, even the Hanafis for the men, so there is pretty much ijma' amongst the scholars for the men that i'tikaf must take place in the masjid. The Hanafi, and only the Hanafi school, allows an exception only for the women and not for the men, and they allow i'tikaf to take place in the house for the women, for the woman. Yeah, that is a position. We respect all positions. I personally don't find it convincing, but if Hanafi Sheikh gives, that's fine. The person can follow that if they are followers of the Hanafi school for the women. As for men, fact of the matter is that there is no i'tikaf in that sense of the term. The concept of i'tikaf is to cut yourself off from family and from society as much as possible. And during this time of crises, not only is that not possible, frankly, it is not advisable because your family, your children need you right now. So firstly, from a technical perspective, you really cannot do i'tikaf in your bedroom, you know, when your wife and kids are there and coming in and out. There has to be a masjid. And secondly, as it is, you know, we are going through enough. You don't want to put your more stress on your family. Look, Allah knows your niyyah. And if you are a person who used to make i'tikaf in the past, or you had a sincere desire before this pandemic began to do i'tikaf this year, then realize innamal a'malu binniyat, and you will get the full reward. And our Prophet said, hadith is Sahih Muslim, that any servant of Allah who falls sick and is not able to do the deeds that they were accustomed to doing, they shall continue to get the ajr even when they're sick, because they had that niyyah there. And therefore, there is no i'tikaf, neither should there be from a psychological perspective. But if your niyyah was there, or you had the habit, inshallah, you will get the ajr. That having been said, let me just conclude the question with this point. There's nothing wrong with dedicating a portion of your time so that everybody knows, do not disturb me, I am doing dhikr, I'm doing Quran, I'm doing tahajjud, I'm just worshipping Allah at this time. So no problem. If you tell everybody, tell your family and friends, tell your kids, like, look, between 5 and 6 p.m. I just want to read Quran, please don't disturb me. And that's your own, technically it's not an i'tikaf, but call it a spiritual i'tikaf, right? No problem that you cut yourself off from this dunya and you just worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah knows your niyyah, that if you're able to do i'tikaf, you would do it. So you do whatever you can, and inshallah Allah will bless you with the rest, inshallah ta'ala.
Barakallahu feek. For those in SoCal, just to let you know that, yeah, we understand that Salatul Maghrib is coming upon us. Inshallah, will be done at 7:30 in around 15 or 16 more minutes. The next question we have is, what schedules? 3 questions by one person. I'm going to see if I'm going to tell you all 3 questions. Hopefully, you can wrap up the answer in all of them. Is, what schedule do you recommend during Ramadan for reading the Quran? Should the focus during Ramadan be recitation of the Quran or having a better understanding of it through tafsir? And can one hold the Quran during Taraweeh prayers to recite surahs that are not memorized? I know you kind of
okay, so 3 questions here. What schedule? Honestly, this is not a question you should ask anybody but yourself. You know your schedule best. Do not ask logistical questions from people who don't know you. I don't know how many hours you have to work. You know, what is your routine? What are your other responsibilities? Only you know that. So you know best what schedules you have. You also know best what is your typical rate of recitation, how long it takes you to recite a juz, how much you want to recite. Some people, if they finish one Quran, they are so happy, and that's like their full ultimate goal. Alhamdulillah. Other people, it's like 5 Qurans minimum. Alhamdulillah. I don't know, you know, how much time and effort and energy and fluency you have. Only you do. What I would recommend is that at the bare minimum, you should have at least 2 time slots to read the Quran, one during the day and one during Qiyamul Layl. At the bare minimum, do something in the daytime and then do something in the Qiyamul Layl. As for the issue of reading the Quran from the Mus'haf, this is something that is explicitly narrated from Imam Malik, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his Mudawwana and Sahih's Mudawwana. Also, Imam Ahmad was asked about this, and he goes, La ba'as, no problem for the Imam to hold the Quran. Also, we have in Muwatta Imam Malik and also in the Mu'allaqat al-Bukhari that Aisha radiallahu anha, she told her servant, her Mawla, Dhakwan, who was not a Hafid, to lead them in Taraweeh and Qiyamul Layl, and he would recite from the Mus'haf. And Az-Zuhri, the famous scholar Zuhri, who died 129 Hijrah, Az-Zuhri said, he was asked about holding the Mus'haf in Taraweeh and Qiyam. He said, we found the best of us. I remember the best of us doing this, meaning of the previous generation. Kana khiyaruna yahmilu al-Mus'haf. The best of us would hold the Mus'haf. And Rabi'a as well, the teacher of Imam Malik, also said a similar statement. So the concept of holding a Quran, especially during Taraweeh, is something that we find explicitly narrated from the time of the Sahaba and Tabi'un and Tabi'un, and the great Imams explicitly allowed this. Imam Malik explicitly allowed it. Imam Abu Hanifa from the Shafi'i school, early scholars, Imam An-Nawawi is explicit in this regard. So all of these great scholars explicitly allowed this, no problem whatsoever. Just a footnote here, if you happen to be strictly following the Hanafi opinion, then in this case know that Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala was the only of the great scholars who said that whoever carries the mushaf, then his salah is batil, it is not accepted. However, his two students, Qadhi Abu Yusuf and Muhammad al-Shaybani, the both of them, they respectfully disagreed with their teacher, and they said that the salah will not be batil, but it is makruh, and it is not something that is encouraged to do, but it is not batil. Nonetheless, they were the only school to discourage it. All of the other schools were very open. They didn't even think it is makruh. It is not makruh. It is not something that is even discouraged. Even for the hafid, by the way, it is not discouraged. So they can or open up the Quran and recite, and there's no problem with that. So inshallah ta'ala, that's also my position. And you may use your iPhone, you may use a mushaf, no problem, whatever is convenient for you. As for the final question in this regard, and that is what is to be given more attention, tafsir or Quran? I say that generally speaking, outside the month of Ramadan, it should be both, but an emphasis on tafsir. However, in the month of Ramadan in particular, the emphasis should be on the tilawah of the Quran, because there is a spiritual impact that happens from the tilawah of the Quran. When the month of Ramadan would come, Imam Malik would close all of his hadith books and he would only read the Quran. That's all he would do. Imam Shafi'i would stop his durus. So there are many narrations of the classical schools, of the classical imams and the great scholars, that when Ramadan would come, they would stop everything, even the most important aspects of knowledge. Imam Malik is narrating the Muwatta, and he would stop, he would shut his books of hadith, and he would only do the Quran. So in the month of Ramadan in particular, there is no question that the mere tilawah of the Quran, and this is proven in the hadith of Bukhari, that the Prophet ﷺ, every single night, Jibreel would come, وَكَانَ يَتَدَارَسُهُ الْقُرْآنِ, and the two of them would recite the Quran to one another. تَدَارَسَ بمعنى each one of them is doing it to the other. And so it is said that Jibreel would recite and the Prophet would recite, so they're reciting to one another. So reading the Quran and listening to the Quran, they are both actions of worship that are explicitly narrated in this month of Ramadan, and therefore this should be our priority. That having been said, if a person gets tired, he cannot recite, obviously your throat is dry, how much can you recite? There's no problem for those who don't understand Arabic that in the breaks of reciting, they just simply peruse the English and see what they are learning, so they can still combine the best of both worlds. But the emphasis, if there needs to be one, because it shouldn't be an either or, but the emphasis should be in Ramadan on the tilawah, and Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Barakallahu feek. Next question was, are we allowed to donate and give sadaqah if we have financial debts, even if you're continuing to make small payments towards it?
So this question goes back to the nature of the debt that is owed to the person. If it is a debt that is owed with immediate efficacy, i.e., the person to whom you owe the debt is demanding it from you and is eager to get it back, in this case, repayment of the debt takes priority over all of your other sadaqah, and you must pay your debt before you give any nafil sadaqah. And many scholars would say that if it is a harsh debt that you must repay, you may even deduct that from your nisab amount, and perhaps even you don't have to give any zakat. Suppose you owe $50,000 and you only have 15,000 in the bank or 10,000 in the bank. Some scholars would say, and I would agree with this, if it is a harsh, strict debt that you owe, that the person is demanding it and you must pay it back and you don't have the money, in this case, perhaps even zakat is lifted from you because you have to pay the debt back, even if you're paying in installments. That having been said, if it is a long-term debt, so for example, or if it's called a soft debt, also some terms is soft debt. For example, the classic example is our mortgage on our houses. Regardless of whether people say it's haram or halal, that's a separate point altogether, but it is a debt and it is being paid back. Or you owe a good friend a large amount of money, and the good friend's like, yeah, whenever you're ready, pay me back, no big deal. So it's not a harsh debt, it's a soft debt, a long-term debt. In this case, no doubt it is best to prioritize that debt. But if one were to give sadaqah, no problem, inshallah, in and of itself. Still, debt is just not a good thing, and one should really optimize. I'm not saying don't give a little bit of charity, a few dollars, $10, $15. That's great to give all the time, and Allah will give back more, inshallah ta'ala. We believe in that. But still, debt is something that we don't want to die in a state of, and only Allah knows when that state will come. Therefore, generally speaking, debts have a priority, but hard debts that are very strictly due, they definitely have a much higher priority than soft and long-term debts. And long-term debts, definitely, if somebody gives charity frequently, that is good, inshallah ta'ala, but it should be reasonable amounts, because still, even if it's long-term, the priority will still be to get rid of that debt as soon as possible. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Jazakallah khairan. The next question is that in salah, are we allowed to make dua other than in the Arabic language in sujood?
So this is a question that a lot of people ask, and it's something that I am very clear about, despite the fact that it does raise a lot of eyebrows in this regard. There is no doubt that the majority position in this regard would be that in sujood of the fard salah, the majority position would be that one should not say something that is not in the Arabic language. However, this position really, with my utmost respect to our great scholars that said this, does not have a shred of evidence, not even a whiff of evidence from and Sunnah. They would allow, those scholars, they would allow a dua to be made in the Arabic language. But the irony here, and again with my utmost respect, which version of the Arabic language? The Moroccan dialect, the Egyptian dialect, the Syrian dialect, the Iraqi dialect, the Khaliji dialect, even within the Khaliji, the Kuwaiti dialect versus the Omani dialect. So those ulama would allow a vast array of dialects, right? Despite the fact that some of those dialects, like the Moroccan, is so different from others, like the Yemeni, that it is possible that the two of them don't even understand one another. And modern Arabic has almost nothing to do with classical Arabic. And any Arab speaker knows this, and anybody who learns Arabic knows this. No society in the world speaks classical Arabic anymore, except in small seminaries where for a while some teachers and students might just converse in classical, but even then they will resort to Ammiya after a while. Nobody speaks in classical anymore. So those ulama who made the condition of the Arabic language, they themselves would allow a wide array of Arabic dialects, some of which are incomprehensible to other Arabs. So the word Arabic language itself has become so vast and vague, and there is no sense at all, no evidence to prohibit the du'as of sajda, not the adhkar, because the adhkar, yes, okay, it is a part of the salah, and the Fatiha, it is a part of salah, and the takbir is a part of salah. These are the arkan. The arkan are going to be in the Arabic language because our Prophet said so, and because the Quran is in the Arabic language. Okay, but other than this, the du'as that are not a part of salah, there is no haraj whatsoever, and this is the position of many of my teachers, Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen and Sheikh Shanqiti, and many of the great ulama of our times. They are very passionately arguing, and that's why I'm also very passionately arguing, that it is nonsensical to tell the Muslims who don't speak Arabic, oh, I'm sorry, just because you don't speak Arabic, you cannot make dua in the sajda. No, you may make dua in the sajda, in the fard and in the nafil sajdas. Why? Because our Prophet encouraged that أقرب ما يكون العبد إلى ربه وهو ساجد فأكثروا فيه من الدعاء فقامن أن يستجاب لكم. So the closest a servant will be to his Lord is going to be when he is in the state of sajda. Therefore, increase your du'as in the state of sajda, because your chances of being answered are very high. Our Prophet is speaking to the entire ummah, Arabahum wa ajamahum, insahum wa jinnahum. Everybody who is doing sajda should make dua in the language they know best, because dua is an act of worship that is not dependent on the tongue, it is dependent on the qalb and the heart, right? So Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't care about the wordings. Ibn Taymiyyah says by unanimous consensus, if a person makes a mistake in the wording, Allah is not going to answer the dua based upon a mistaken word. If he used the wrong word, Allah is going to look at the intention of the word. So no problem whatsoever in the state of sajda. Once you have done the adhkar, you've said Subhana Rabbil A'la, and you are finished with the arkan and the wajibat of salah, now you have some time in the sajda, in the fard, in the sunnah, in the nafil, it does not matter. You may and you should make dua in any language. Yes, if you know Arabic and you know the Quranic du'as, no problem. The Sunnah du'as, no problem. That is definitely better. But if you don't, it is not, even if you know Arabic and you know another language, it's not a condition that du'a can be made in Arabic. And also by unanimous consensus of every scholar of Islam without any difference of opinion, du'a outside of salah can be made in any language, and it will count as an action of worship. By unanimous consensus, dua is not restricted to the Arabic language. So why should it be restricted to the Arabic language inside of salah? And therefore, many modern scholars, especially those that are known to our audiences, they are now arguing, despite the fact, again, 1,000 years ago, the world was very different. And back then, every educated Muslim spoke Arabic. So our scholars were thinking in a different paradigm. But there's no evidence from the Quran or Sunnah to restrict du'as to the Arabic language inside of salah. Therefore, we keep it open, and it is no problem whatsoever to make dua in any language in the sajda after the wajibat of the Subhan Rabbil A'la are done. And Allah knows best.
I think the follow-up question will be that I think a lot of people are going to be praying the witr at home and not with the masjid. Can they, people like the long witr du'as, right? Is it okay for someone to make that in English during witr prayer?
So, you know, I haven't really gone public with this yet. I plan to write a longer article. In my opinion, yes, and I have actually asked a number of ulama. It so happened that I visited Sheikh Qadhi a few years ago, and I had a series of questions I asked him, and this is one of the questions I asked Sheikh Qadhi. And I also visited Mufti Taqi Uthmani 2 years ago in Pakistan, and I had a series of questions, and this is one of the questions I asked him, that the issue of making witr dua in the English language for an audience that does not understand Arabic. And the both of them, I would say they reluctantly agreed, i.e. they said, yeah, la, there's no problem. I mean, they didn't jump on and say, yes, go for it. Rather, there's like, yeah, I guess if they have to, you know, I mean, if they don't understand Arabic. So they're kind of sort of not very happy that it is done, but they didn't have a problem with this. And again, this is something I haven't really written anything about yet. So, yani, it's going to cause an issue and controversy. I understand this. If you're able to read it in Arabic for now, go ahead, Bismillah. Because the whole concept, so that's another issue. Witr and dua al-qunut, and the link between the two. A lot of people don't know that this is actually a very simple fiqh issue. Only the Ahnaf really link dua al-qunut with the witr. The Shawafi', as our Sheikh knows, the Shawafi', the witr is in Salat al-Fajr anyway, you know. And the other madhabs, they have a different concept of the qunut anyway. The qunut, I mean, sorry, the qunut is in Salat al-Fajr anyway. So this whole concept of having qunut in witr is something that also requires more longer discussion. It is really only the Hanafis that are very strict in this regard, and they kind of sort of require the qunut in the witr. For the other madahib, because the qunut is not a requirement of witr, so aslan the whole language issue becomes easier anyway. Nonetheless, to summarize this, look, if you're able to do it in Arabic just to get out of the controversy, because no, this is not something that too many people are saying publicly. And if and when I will go fully public with this, it will be something that will raise a lot of eyebrows, even if I have some big names behind me. But still, I know it's going to cause a lot of issues. So for now, and my question, by the way, was not for individuals. It was for the actual congregation. My question was for, why should we restrict ourselves to Arabic in America when we're making 20-minute qunut du'as, and not a single person other than the 3 Arab uncles, with my utmost respect to the Arab uncle, Sheikh Abdul Rauf, just the 2-3 Arab uncles in the back, they understand. 99% of the masjid is Desi Pakistani, they have no clue what is being said. Why restrict yourself to the Arabic language when it is not one of the arkan? So that was my question to these mashayikh, and they understood, and they're like, yeah, okay, if that is the case, then you know, I see why that would be, you know, that would be permissible in that scenario. So this is something that, again, I haven't really gone public about this. I guess I just did with this interview. But anyway, just when it comes, it comes. For now, it's just don't cause any controversies and stick with the majority position, inshallah ta'ala.
Barakallah, I know that's a difficult question, but a lot of people are asking. It is 7:31 over here on the West Coast, and we're ending at 7:30. So inshallah, we'd like to wrap up the program. Really appreciate Sheikh Yasir